Hello, everyone. This is Aladdin. If you're not familiar with my channel, I am an ex-Muslim, as the name implies, Apostate Aladdin. I make videos that discuss topics in Islam, topic that are pertaining to people who have left Islam or those who are still Muslim. I make some satirical videos about certain stories and plots in Islam. I have live streams where I talk to believers and ex-Muslims and all sorts of people to understand how they think, what makes them believe what they believe, and to open some discussion, facilitate that kind of discussion, all sorts of talks, really. So if you're not familiar with my content, feel free to take a moment to go watch my other videos as well. I started off making TikToks, but I found that to be not a good medium for what I want to do. And it's very hard to convey an idea in 60 seconds or less without being brutally attacked for trying to express it. So, without further ado, today's topic weighs heavy on me, and I have never been this nervous going into a live stream before. Even though there are no guests today, there's no opposition, but I feel like I want to do this topic justice. I want it to come off the way that I am thinking. I don't want to be misconstrued in any way, and I think it's important to talk about this. Um, so today's topic is an attack that happened in a mosque in Canada. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is even though we don't have the facts yet, we just know that the person who did the attack has a Muslim name. We don't know if he is a practicing Muslim or not, but suspicion is aroused, and it seems like he might be an atheist or someone who used to be Muslim or born Muslim and isn't anymore, or perhaps an ex-Muslim. It hasn't been confirmed yet, and I wouldn't have talked about it otherwise because I wouldn't talk about every single instance of any sort of altercation or attack or event that happens in the world. However, I noticed that this video by Sadat, the Canadian brother, is trying to present it as if our discussions here on channels like mine, he hasn't named me per se, but he's named Abdullah Samir, or he put his photo on the screen. He's trying to imply or explicitly say that we are enabling this kind of attack. We're encouraging this kind of attack, even if we don't do it explicitly. This is the cause right here. And I have a lot to say about that, but I thought the best way to do that would be to go through his video play by play, second by second, see what he said, see what thoughts I have in return. Then I want to show you how I handled a similar incident, but from the other way around. And it's similar in some ways, but not in other ways. Last year, Hatun Tash, a prominent Christian, possibly ex-Muslim, I'm not sure, critic of Islam, was stabbed in Speaker's Corner, and I made a video about that. And I will play some of my video to show you how I handled talking about this topic, how it wasn't about vilifying Muslims. You'll see how my rhetoric was back in, I don't remember if it was July of last year, and how it's been consistent since. I mean, hopefully since before that as well. And then I will tell you about an incident, thankfully nothing physical, nothing that happened aside from online, where a viewer of mine, and I'm not going to name him, I don't have any hard feelings, but he had sent me threatening voice notes, threatening myself and my family. Luckily, it seemed like he didn't know enough information to actually act on that, or at least he didn't share it with me at the time, but I'll tell you how that went down and how I handled it. And it's not about naming or shaming today because I think the resolution was a decent one. So let me address a couple of comments before I begin. Qamar says, can you please share where you read that the attacker is a suspected ex-Muslim? Nowhere does it say that. But we'll go through the logic of Sadat in this accusation. As he put it, he's 99% sure. He wouldn't give his life for it, but he's 99% sure. So let's see his logic behind that. But let's presume that he is an ex-Muslim. I will talk about that as well. So let's begin by playing the video. Let's see. Please let me know if the audio is okay.
Assalamu alaikum. Behind me is the Al-Tawheed Islamic Center in Mississauga in the Greater Toronto area here in Canada. Around this time yesterday, a bit earlier in fact, during Fajr time, which is the early dawn prayer, some loser walked into this mosque with an axe and a can of bear spray. He started his attack by discharging the bear spray in the direction of the worshippers. But get this attack on a Canadian mosque took a different twist. In this case, the usually very passive and peaceful Canadian Muslims took the matter into their hands. They didn't waste a moment and they quickly took this loser down. Alhamdulillah for that, because only God knows what kind of damage this guy could have inflicted with his axe. And on top of that, he also had other concealed sharp weapons on his person. So again, Alhamdulillah. Now to
Let me pause for a second and I'll share with you what I thought when I heard about the news. Before this video, before I even thought of the name, before I've heard of the name, my first thought was, I hope that it's not a Sunni Shia thing or some other, sect issue or whatever it was. I was just hoping that it wasn't religiously fueled, because I know that would reflect poorly on the worshippers. So had it been a Shia Muslim argument or something of the sort, then it would paint Muslims as, violent against each other and so on. And I didn't want that to happen. So that didn't turn out to be the case. And my second thought was, I'm glad that nobody got hurt. When I first saw an attack, I thought, oh no, I hope that it wasn't successful. So those were my first two thoughts. I didn't go as far as thinking, is it, is it an ex-Muslim or not?
To be honest, covering these kinds of stories, even when they're local stories, is not really my thing, because unfortunately, it's just not news. Here in Canada, for a mosque to be attacked, and by attacked, I mean not necessarily violently, but vandalized, graffitied, spray painted, windows broken, this unfortunately is a question of when and not if. But the reason I'm doing this.
Okay, something I want to highlight there. So the narrative being that Muslims are constantly attacked in Canada. I just have to point out that if you look at the baseline, how are Muslims treated compared to, for example, Christians in Canada? Of course, they're more of a minority, so of course they're singled out more. But if you look at how minorities in Muslim majority countries are treated, it's way, way worse than how Muslims are treated in Canada. So to say that it's an inevitability that a mosque would be attacked, I really don't think it's as common as he's making it out to be. I mean, the examples that he's going to give are from a year ago or 2 years ago, and I'm not saying that once a year is a good amount and we should not strive for better. No, I hope that these attacks never happen, but let's not misconstrue the statistics here.
This one is to highlight one very important fact that will probably not get highlighted in the mainstream media if mentioned at all. Now, I said fact in quotes because it's not 100% confirmed, but
then is it a fact?
In my mind, it's 99% confirmed. And so it's pretty established in my mind. I wouldn't gamble my life on it, but I would be willing to take a little bit of bear spray, pepper spray, if I was wrong. And here is that fact. The attacker in this case was 24-year-old Muhammad Moiz Umar, as reported in various online newspapers. Now, when people heard that, they immediately assumed, oh, so it wasn't a non-Muslim hater. This was a Muslim on Muslim crime. This was a Muslim attacking other Muslims, maybe a crazy Muslim. And see, even we Muslims have been brainwashed so much by the media to hate ourselves or to suspect ourselves that the possibility of this guy not being a Muslim, of him being something like an ex-Muslim, didn't even cross most of our minds.
I would argue that's not because, or not necessarily because the media has trained you to suspect yourself and all that. It's because when you read a Muslim name, you presume it's a Muslim. See, every time an actor wins an award or some scientist wins an award and they have a Muslim name, people champion them. They're like, mashallah, look at what Muslims are achieving. Nobody checks. Nobody asks, are they ex-Muslim? Are they practicing? So that is the presumption here. A guy called Muhammad walking into a mosque. Obviously, the presumption is going to be, at least they're Muslim by default. So that is something that I hope we move away from. Just like somebody can be called Chris or Christopher and not be presumed a Christian. Maybe in the future, Muhammads are not going to be presumed Muslims. But in the meantime, I think that's a bigger factor in the presumption that they're a Muslim. It's because of the name, and it's because of how Muslims presume that others are Muslims. This idea of an ex-Muslim has not come to the forefront of discussions online until not that long ago.
But for some of us, it did. And so one of my helpers, may Allah bless him, sent me this. In this online post, somebody named Moiz Omar is saying that he's not at all saddened by the fact that someone from the JI, which is the Jamaat-e-Islami political group in Pakistan, was murdered. His exact words are, for some reason, I don't really feel any pity when someone from the JI is deceased. Deceased here is acting as a euphemism for murdered, for massacred, because what happened was that in 2014, Dr. Khalid Mahmood Sumro, who was one of the leaders of the JI, the Jamaat-e-Islami, was murdered in a mosque. Incidentally, after the morning prayers, after Fajr prayers. Now, the question to think about here is, what Muslim thinks like this?
Okay, couple of things to say here. I don't know anything about this political group, so I'm not going to comment on that. I may have heard their name floating here and there, but it would be hearsay on my part, so I'm not going to say anything there. However, he says, what kind of Muslim would say that, right?
Now, the question to think about here is, what Muslim thinks like this?
Okay, this is not me trying to make a case that this attacker was an ex-Muslim, but I wanted to address this one point. What a coincidence that just today, just like every single day, I get some sort of a comment on one of my videos that goes a little bit like this. This one is very ironic that I received it today. So this comment was on a TikTok of mine. A person called Sharia for something the world. I'm not gonna give you specifics. They say Shia are kuffar. Shias are wajib al-qatl. We're supposed to kill them. Alhamdulillah, what happened in Pakistan. I don't know what incident they're talking about. But here is a Sunni saying that other Muslims deserve to be killed. And he's asking what kind of Muslim would talk about a political party member like that. It's not that uncommon at all, let alone what they say towards us. Every single day, I get comments talking about why we deserve to be executed or why this person shouldn't have said that and then they deserve whatever they get every single day. So you can't pull that card and say, what kind of Muslim would say this? They say that against each other. And of course, there are Muslims who say, that's messed up. Don't ever say that. And sometimes it extends to ex-Muslims as well. They would say, don't even say that about ex-Muslims, that they deserve to be killed. Sometimes that happens, and we also highlight those instances. So yeah, presenting it as if it's some kind of gotcha, like a far-fetched situation, it doesn't make sense here. One more thing, again, not defending whether this guy's an ex-Muslim or not, but he's going off of an old comment from 7 years ago on some other platform with a faceless name. It's not the best way to go about proving something, but I digress. I don't care. Let's continue. Oh, there's no audio. Okay. Let me do that again. Sorry. So thank you for letting me know, everybody. Okay, so here we go. This should be better.
Massacred, being killed while he's praying in the mosque. So what Muslim would say that they're not saddened in any way by an elder being massacred, being killed while he's praying in the mosque? So could this commenter have been the same Moiz Umar that perpetrated the attack here on the Al-Tawheed Islamic Center? Allahu Alam. To me, it seems likely. Now, here's the next screenshot that was sent to me. On this website, again, someone named Moiz Umar says, I don't see why we shouldn't recognize Israel. I mean, what have the Palestinians done for us that we should be on their side? While that might not sound crazy to a non-Muslim, that viewpoint is crazy for just about any Muslim. What Muslim thinks that?
Believe it or not, I've met Muslims who are pro-Israel and not Palestine. I'm not going to comment on that political mess, but I'm just saying, again, he's trying so desperately, and let me cut to the chase here. He's trying so desperately to look for proof that this guy is an ex-Muslim, or not even an ex-Muslim, that this guy is an atheist, right? Or a guy who doesn't like Islam. However, when we get attacks like this the other way around, they explicitly say everything down to Allahu Akbar. So I will give it to you. Let's presume this guy is ex-Muslim. Go ahead and make your point.
Muslim says that. And again, the commenter's name is Moise Umar. Could that be the same Moise Umar that here in Canada attacked Al-Tawheed Islamic Center? It's very possible. And now here's the thing. The Moise Umar that was captured here, that was restrained by the worshippers here, that was held until the police arrived, he also gave the worshippers the impression that he was not a Muslim. I found out firsthand from one of the people that attends this masjid that when he was restrained, when Moise Umar was restrained, then he was asked by the worshippers, why did you do this? And his response was, because you're all terrorists. Now, again,
something to comment about that. So, again, I'm not defending this person. I don't know what they said or didn't say, but I'm definitely not going to go off of the testimony of a dawah person who's going off of somebody else's testimony that I don't know if is official or not. However, this is ironic because this just came to light recently in an altercation between an ex-Muslim content creator and a Muslim content creator on TikTok, where she just kept repeating, the Muslim content creator, that ex-Muslims keep calling Muslims terrorists and violent and this and that. And she wasn't able to substantiate it with one screenshot from any of us. I mean, if she can really dig, maybe she can find a random commenter with no profile picture and no name, some troll, one of them or two, but you don't catch us saying this kind of stuff because we don't say this kind of stuff. So if that is true, that this person said that, what does that have to do with the ex-Muslim rhetoric that he's going to tie this to?
And how likely is it that he's a Muslim and he would say that? What Muslim thinks like that? What Muslim says something like that? Now consider this last piece of evidence, which I just found today, and who knows what might come out in the following days. And that is a 2011 online article in Pakistan Today, in which a Moise Umar has posted the following comment, which he posted in 2014. I'm a Pakistani Canadian atheist. Is this all coincidence? Could this Moise Umar, who identifies himself as a Pakistani Canadian atheist, be the same Moise Umar who attacked worshippers at this mosque yesterday? I believe that it's very likely. And remember,
like I said, let's just skip to the chase, right? Let's cut to the chase. I'm not going to make any claims about this guy till we know the facts, but let's presume for the sake of this video that he is someone who was born into a Muslim family and isn't anymore. What is the point he's trying to make here?
Remember, we'd probably be able to dig out a lot more information about Moise Umar had the police not done the usual thing of taking down all of his social media accounts. And unfortunately, from past experience, what that means is that we, the common people, will never really find out what was on those social accounts that might be of interest to us. Just consider it gone forever. Nonetheless, as we said, from some of this evidence that I showed you here in this video, plus from the testimony of the...
My dude, you don't know what evidence means. And I think that carries over to your religious beliefs, and that's very obvious, but that's a topic for another day.
Worshippers themselves who were here yesterday for the Fajr dawn prayer, the impression that they got is that this attacker is not a Muslim. And I'm saying that he was most likely an ex-Muslim. Yes, that loud and rowdy group, ex-Muslims who are always...
Let's pause here for a second. That loud and rowdy group, right? Who do you see on the face of the news, right, causing mayhem and incidents here and there? Is it ex-Muslims? How many incidents have you heard of ex-Muslims going out, especially when they specifically make it about, this is why I am going to hurt a Muslim today? How many times does that happen? Are we really the rowdy people here? And I don't want to make this an us versus them thing, but I just have to point out the hypocrisy. And I paused it here because I want to highlight this because this bothered me personally. So those of you who know me know that my rhetoric isn't hateful, or at least it's not intended to be taken that way, and I put plenty of disclaimers. This is Abdullah Samir, the friendly ex-Muslim. He is even calmer than I am. He's calmed me down before when I've ranted to him about something or another in my frustration. So to use him as an example of the rowdy, hateful ex-Muslims is just, it's beyond absurd to me. And here's the comment to give Abdullah Samir a voice. This is what he was saying. He said, Sadat, you are being unfair and unjust here. I am just as horrified as you about this event. I actually have family members who attend this mosque, and I would never want to see them or anyone else hurt so senselessly like this. You decide to include me in this video when it's clear that I'm against such horrid attacks against Muslims, and frankly against anyone else, no matter what their gender, race, religion, or sexuality is. ex Muslims of North America, which he had the screenshot of them right before Abdullah Samir, an organization that stands for freedom of religion and secularism and the rights of all people, has also gone out of its way to make sure that it stood up against bigotry, including raising awareness about the Uyghur abuse in China, about the plight of Muslims in India recently, and other such events. Yes, we are dissenters and we do not agree with many of the Islamic injunctions, but we do not agree with hurting Muslims, many of which are our brothers, our mothers, our fathers, etc. I have not met a single ex-Muslim who behaved in this manner, and none that would ever agree with this. This is an unfair slander against us. So, yeah, the irony of calling Samir, of all people, rowdy, and the ex-Muslims of North America, the loud rowdy group. Let's hear it from him again.
Yes, that loud and rowdy group, ex-Muslims who are always complaining about Islam being evil and intrinsically violent. And this would not be the first time that this happened in Toronto. In recent...
Another comment here. Ex-Muslims who complain about Islam being inherently evil.
And this would not be the first time that this happened in Toronto and intrinsically violent. And this would always complaining about Islam being evil and intrinsically violent. And this would...
Okay, Islam being evil and intrinsically violent. Here's what I say when I talk about this. I don't say Islam is inherently evil, because what Islam means to Muslims is very different depending on the Muslim. And unfortunately, that's what makes it very problematic, because you don't know what version of it there is, how much the Muslim knows about Islam, how much they believe about certain aspects of it, what they consider to be sahih or not. It's a mess. So I don't say Islam is evil, because I see Islam as one of the religions that have a lot of potential for damage, especially given the ambiguity in it, especially given the scare tactics, given how it is implemented in many places in the world today. There's a lot more nuance to it than that. So they always try to reduce our positions to a couple of words that they have said about themselves. And then, like, Muslims are I don't want to say the phrase, but they would say that we make these claims, and then they don't substantiate them. But let's hear it from him.
Would not be the first time that this happened in Toronto. In recent times, in fact, you might recall that 2 years ago, Menhaz Zaman, a young Bangladeshi Canadian, murdered his entire family. Until today, many Canadian Muslims still believe that Menhaz Zaman was by default a Muslim who murdered his family, but this was clearly not the case.
This is an idiotic point to make, and here's why. So you're saying 2 years ago, someone who was from a Muslim background but isn't a believer anymore committed a crime. He killed people, right? What's funny is just today, right, I was getting complaints about a Muslim guy sexually harassing a girl. It happens every single day. So what example are you trying to make here? How many Muslim guys have killed people every single day? How is that proof of anything? It's not even, someone is saying correlation is not equal causation. It's not even that. It's not even correlation. How many ex-Muslims go about not murdering anybody? And how many Muslims go about not murdering anybody? Now, how many Muslims kill their family members for one reason or another, or are violent against their daughters or sisters because of some honor crime or another? You can argue that's not what Islam preaches, but if you want to make that kind of correlation, you're using a very poor example here. It's the dumbest example that I've seen here.
He too was an ex-Muslim, and it's confirmed he identified himself as an atheist. And there's even evidence to suggest that his atheistic worldview encouraged him in making that fateful, unfortunate decision that he did to...
So it's funny when they always claim things like that. And then Muslims who do harm ex-Muslims and harm whatever other group or other Muslims explicitly say, it is my Islamic worldview that made me do this. Explicitly, down to the Allahu Akbar. So what point are you trying to make here? Like, this guy is really slim pickings here. Like, he's looking for one criminal. He's like, that's because of his atheistic worldview. We have evidence. And if your standard for evidence is what you claimed earlier, is that what you label evidence, then I don't trust your word on anything. But even if that were true, if that guy came out and said, I am explicitly an ex-Muslim, I used to be a Muslim, I'm not anymore, what point are you making here?
to murder his parents, his sister, his grandmother, etc. In fact, I made a video on the Menhaj Zaman murders about a year ago called Did Atheism Play a Role? Revisiting the Menhaj Zaman murders. You can click on.
Interesting, because I thought about myself and I thought I made a video last year about in my video I claimed that the stabbing of Hatun Tash is in many views okay Islamically. And I explained why. I showed hadiths. I showed a precedent before. I showed the judgments about this kind of thing. I came with substantial proof. Now I don't know what his video like what's in his video. I haven't watched it, and I don't think I'd waste my time watching that video. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be just grasping at straws about some vague atheistic worldview causing him to kill people, as if atheists don't exist every single day and do great things in the world. But somehow this is proof that atheism leads you to kill people. I cited actual hadiths, and I'll talk about that afterwards. And I'll show you how I went about talking about this topic compared to how he's painting us ex-Muslims here.
Click on that here to watch that now. Now, it seems that there's a minority of ex-Muslims who turn militant atheists and then who become obsessed stalkers, online trolls, and
so he says he kind of covers his butt by saying there's a minority of ex-Muslims. Yet earlier he showed the ex-Muslims of North America, right, as the loud group, whatever the wording is. He said, is he saying that Abdullah Samir, for example, is a militant atheist? The examples that he showed, are those militant? Is that the minority that he's talking about? Because obviously, yes, the majority of ex-Muslims are just trying to go about their day. The majority of ex-Muslims don't even know of the label ex-Muslim, because they think that they're the insane ones. They think that they're the only ones around them who don't believe, and some of them think there's something wrong with them because they're surrounded by Muslims who just live their life every single day, who they make the rules according to Islam. It's just seen as insane to not be Muslim. So, of course, there's a minority that's going to be talking about it. I don't understand his point here either, but let's hear him out.
And sometimes even criminal vigilantes against their ex-religion of
criminal vigilantes. Sometimes criminal. Can you give us examples of so-called criminal vigilantes? I mean, here's the thing. For it to be a systemic issue, we have to see large numbers of this happening. Compared to the amount of ex-Muslims that exist, there's no doctrine here, right? There's no promotion of, hey, you should go out and harm Muslims. There's no promotion of that Muslims are bad people who deserve to be harmed. None of that is happening. So it'd be very difficult for you to make a case for this. But unfortunately, when you have such a platform, you don't even need to make a case for your religion, let alone make a case for an accusation like this. You just have people who clap for you. All the comments were, mashallah, beautiful video. I don't even see what the beauty of this video is. I mean, the thumbnail alone, he had like fail, and he was taking it like such a joke. He was really happy, this is a win for him.
Of Islam. While most ex-Muslims would never commit the kind of crime that occurred here yesterday, the hateful rhetoric that a minority of them produce and that they marinate in can unfortunately trigger and inspire such violent terrorist attacks.
We will get to that in a little bit, and I would have loved for him to actually cite this, because I keep hearing hateful rhetoric, and then I ask the people who send me these objections, what is it that is hateful about what I'm saying? Not just so I can fight back and say, no, that wasn't hateful. If I truly am hateful without meaning to, I will adjust that. And this pertains to my story that I'm going to tell at the end of this stream. I really urge you to listen to that. But where is it?
Is this something that needs to be addressed by the ex-Muslim community, especially the ones that organize and advocate against Islam? Is it time that the problem...
Is it something that needs to be addressed? Can you point to any instances of us supporting this? Can you not see the instances of us actually going out and explicitly condemning this, like right now?
Of hate and potential violence or other unhealthy behaviors or obsessions be addressed by this group? Should certain warning signs like being obsessed with Islam and obsessed with refuting Muslims be a possible alarm bell? Or
okay, let's take this the other way. Should certain warning signs like praying 5 times a day and being obsessed with Islam be a warning sign? If you go to the mosque 5 times a day, should the Secret Service be looking into you? Of course, I'm not implying that, but if that's your idea here, then it should work the other way around. If anything, we keep justifying why is it that some of us try to talk about this topic more frequently than the average ex-Muslim would. It's because there are many who are stuck in positions where they can't. It's because I am wearing a goddamn mask. Why am I wearing a mask? Why do you think I'm wearing a mask? Is it because I'm ashamed of my views? If I was ashamed of my views, I wouldn't show any part of my face at all. I wouldn't be using my real voice. I wouldn't be out here putting myself in danger. But that's the problem. I am in danger for just talking about this topic in any capacity. As long as you say, I don't believe Islam is true and it's okay to leave Islam and this is what's wrong about Islam, you're going to be opposed very strongly. And if you dare make any jokes, as you have the right to, as all religions and ideas are satirized, you are in danger. So how dare you say that because we're talking about this, we're inciting hate against Muslims? This is a reaction to Islam. What we're doing here is a reaction to Muslims, and I'm doing my best to not reflect just even a fraction of the hate that I get. You would not believe the amount of hate that I get, and I'm a tiny channel. So it is infuriating when on top of all that, I am being painted, and not explicitly me, but someone who is even calmer than I am is being painted as part of this problem that caused someone to go out and try to murder people. It's very frustrating. And I'll show you exactly how he's wrong and how I am doing better than him at having this kind of discourse. And by the way, I invite you, I keep forgetting his name, Sadat. I invite you to come and have a conversation with me, or I'll come to your channel. I don't care where it happens. Any kind of public conversation where we get to talk about topics like not the validity of Islam being true, because I don't think in a million years there's a way that you can prove that Islam is true or any other religion. But I'd like to talk about how Islam paints ex-Muslims and disbelievers in general. I'd like to talk about how you think objectively that your worldview is the truth, and how that enables you and justifies you to read hateful verses, to repeat hateful sentiments towards us. I'd like to have that conversation with you. So, so it's not just a back and forth via videos. So just extending that, and I'm going to repeat it in the end.
Or red flag. After all, using romantic relationships as a model, when marital relationships, for example, break down, it's seen as a very unhealthy and possibly damaging trait when one of the people becomes obsessed, whether positively or negatively, with.
That's cute. All right. This whole repetition of it's like an obsessed ex, right? An obsessed ex. Why would you be so obsessed with your ex? Let's fix the example. So if my ex were abusive, or at least had the potential to be abusive, or told his partners, multiple, that if they leave, they will be burnt in hell forever, who allowed beating his partner to some extent or another. And I'm going to show everybody already knows, and I've spoken about this multiple times, Islam allows a man to beat his wife gently or otherwise. That's a whole discussion that's kind of pointless in my opinion. But I'll show a hadith where you're allowed to beat your children if they don't pray, for example. So there it is, like starting from the youth, this corporal punishment. And you're telling me that I have no right to talk about that partner, the abusive or potentially abusive or emotionally abusive, emotionally blackmailing partner. If anything, I'm doing a disservice to the world by knowing all of this, by not discussing this issue for those who are in this abusive relationship and unable to leave. So it's such a bad example. What kind of relationship is it when you have a gun hanging on the wall, always reminding the partner, if you leave, I will shoot you, and then you'll come back to life and I'll shoot you again, and so on. That's what your religion preaches. So please do not use that example, because it's not a good look for you.
With the other person. If you want to leave, in other words, just leave. If you want to leave Islam, just leave.
Right. Okay. About that. So every single day, I read or hear about cases where not even an ex-Muslim, a Muslim who had doubts, for example, who lives in a Western country, when they visit back home, be it the last example I read was Somalia or anywhere in the Middle East or Pakistan or other countries, they get their passport, their Western passport, taken away from them, and they're just thrown into some Islamic school or another to save them. And I'm not talking just about under 18-year-olds. It happens to adults as well. That kind of thing, how can they just walk away? How can they be the ones to talk about this topic if they can't even escape the country? I'm doing it for them. I'm discussing this idea aside from these extreme cases, and they're not that extreme. They happen very, very often. I'm talking about the concept itself. If you and your religion say that we're the worst of people, right? Even if you don't treat me that way publicly, you treat non-Muslims better than you treat ex-Muslims, 100 times better. Because you view us as traitors, you view us as someone who's seen the truth and denies it. You have a lot of far out ideas that have to do with the supernatural realm and have to do with this fictional believing disbeliever, this oxymoron of a kafir. But that's another topic. So you expect us to take all of this and walk away and not talk on behalf of those who are suffering because of that, or all the relationships that are severed because of the Muslims not accepting that someone has left Islam. It's usually the Muslim community that doesn't like that someone has left Islam. Most of us, especially the ones who come out here and talk about it, I am very friendly with Muslims. If you look at my discussions with Muslims, I tell them at the end, I don't care if at the end of the day you believe in you believe in the unseen or not, as long as your beliefs don't harm you or anybody else. So it seems like you're very blind, maybe intentionally so, to the effect that Islam has on people who leave it. Because it doesn't just disappear. Years of being in Islam don't disappear. The community around you, the country you're in, doesn't disappear. So it's very obtuse to use that silly talking point that I thought was just only teenagers use that talking point, but turns out it's all the way up. That's where they get it from the Dawah people.
Don't come back for Fajr prayer. Leave us alone.
Okay, I'm going. Take off. See ya. Bye.
Fantastic.
On a positive now, brothers and sisters, I'm very, very proud of the brave brothers who took this loser down. I still think that they went really easy on him. And in fact, this is what the haters are counting on. They don't really believe that Canadian Muslims in particular are violent people.
Okay, that's a bit of a stretch. So you're saying that this hater, or this person who I'm pretty sure is deranged, right? This is not a rational person who would go in and do something like that. You're saying that he was counting on Muslims being peaceful to him, and that's why he was empowered to do it. No, he was counting on people not being ready for an attack, just like any other people. It's not about you being too peaceful and people taking advantage of that.
If they believed that we were violent, they would want to stay far away from us. They wouldn't take the risk of walking into a mosque and attacking Muslims. If I knew that...
Doesn't he see that he's kind of going against his own point? So if ex-Muslims say that all Muslims are terrorists and so on, if that's what we truly believe, why would we go to a mosque? In this case, this person would go to a mosque and try to attack those people. He's kind of refuting his own point.
I knew that there was a mafia meeting happening across the street, or even a Hell's Angel meeting happening across the street.
As Abdullah Samir said, his own family members go to that mosque sometimes. Do you forget, do you not realize that empathy is one of the things that actually led a lot of us out of Islam? And I feel like religion dulls empathy in many ways, and it's not just exclusive to Islam, but Islam does it very well. You somehow don't realize that one of the things that got me to realize that Islam is not the true religion is my empathy for non-believers. And this line of questioning rarely really clicks with a Muslim unless they start realizing that Islam is not the truth and they end up leaving. When I ask, what is the fault of the non-Muslims, the disbelievers, as you would call them, who are just raised into this so-called disbelief, and no matter how much you try, it's just like you are not going to leave Islam for Christianity or another religion. They're not going to leave their religion for yours, no matter how well they got the correct, true message. I felt empathy for them. Why do they deserve hell? And yet you seem to not have that empathy. So you forget that we have empathy for Muslims, even if we don't agree with them, even if we don't practice the same religion anymore. So no, not everybody thinks like you.
I would stay far away from it. So believe me, people are banking on the fact that Canadian Muslims are peaceful, that we know more about accounting than we know about self-defense, that we know more about developing apps, that we know more about computer programming and criminal law and immigration law and things like that than we know about the physical.
I mean, okay, go ahead and flatter all the Muslim immigrants in Canada, but you seem to be missing the point that this has nothing to do with Islam or Muslims per se. I mean, Muslims in Muslim countries are going to be less skilled on average because only the ones with higher skills and higher education get to immigrate to another country. So again, statistics, what are you even talking about? What does this have to do with anything?
Physical martial arts. And they're also counting on our mercy and on our compassion. I really believe that the long-term strategy for us has to be that we have to make examples. We have to make examples of people that would attack us. While I have
Speaking of examples, how many times has he spoken up against the bad examples of Muslims? How many times has he made examples of a dawah person saying something hateful, including dawah people in North America, in Canada, in the UK, in English-speaking countries, people that he would possibly interact with or have heard of? How many times have you made an example? Feel free to make an example of this psychotic person who attacked people. And I hope that if he's truly deranged, I hope that he gets the help that he desperately needs. But this selective this selective focus, I don't think you've ever said anything about the rhetoric that mainstream da'wah people have about us ex-Muslims. That's hypocrisy.
have a lot of faith in the Canadian justice system. I have complete faith in the Canadian police, in the Peel police in this case, to be precise. But I don't have faith that the police can be everywhere all the time at the same time. So we can't outsource all of our security. We need to take responsibility now for ourselves. So after this attack, I hope we won't just repeat the same talking points that we always repeat about the government needing to do more. Look, the federal government here in Canada has done a lot to condemn Islamophobia already. Also on the...
And that's a problem right here. Islamophobia and anti-Muslim bigotry should be two different words, two different terms. Because what is Christianophobia? That's not a thing. You can go out and say, and Muslims do go out and say all sorts of jokes, all sorts of mockery, all sorts of criticism about Christianity. No one calls them a Christianophobe. So if someone is even mocking Islam, saying Islam is such a dumb religion, it's such a stupid idea that the Prophet flew on a donkey, whatever it may be, how is that a phobia? How does that translate to, therefore, I think it's okay to attack Muslims? These two things don't correlate, and stop trying to make them correlate, because once somebody realizes that it's justified to mock, critique, do whatever they want about an idea or a religion, if they see the same word, if they're like, okay, I'm already being called an Islamophobe, everybody already hates me, might as well hate the people who are perpetuating this, who are hiding behind this label of Islamophobia. This is going to be worse for Muslims in the long term. So I hope they separate it for their own sake. Because people would consider me an Islamophobe, but am I an anti-Muslim hater? I really don't think I am. But if you want to call me that, then okay, then no one is going to be sympathetic to Muslims, or no one is going to seem like they're decent. Everyone's either an Islamophobe or they're a Muslim. That's, no in between, or or an Islam sympathizer, basically.
On the municipal level, on the provincial level, politicians, leaders from all different political stripes have repeatedly condemned Islamophobia and hate against Islam and Muslims. All of that stuff is good, but it's not going to make any difference to the haters or those who are determined to attack us. The guy who attacked this masjid, it makes no difference to him that March 15th next year will be the first March 15th that is designated as the International Day to Combat Islamophobia.
I do not like that name of that day. Because like I said, it's okay to dislike Islam as an idea. Is it really that bad to be against the way that Islam views women? Is it that bad to be against beating your child for not praying? Is that Islamophobic of me? Is that hateful of me to say, I do not like the idea that you should beat your child for not praying? And this is the problem with religion. In the mind of the parent, they're doing the right thing. Isn't beating them a little bit worth it so that they don't go to eternal hell? In the mind of a believer, yes. And that's why I can't vilify them. I understand why they think that way. But to tell me that me being against that idea means that I am equivalent to someone who would go and wield an axe in a mosque or support that is incorrect.
Makes no difference to him. Yes, such initiatives can be good. They can make some positive differences, but we can't rely on governments to do everything. Muslims, please, arm yourselves legally and train yourselves and train your youth in self-defense and be ready to go into fight mode at any time and to defend ourselves and our places of worship. I think some positive changes are starting to come about. I think the fact that these brothers went into attack mode so quickly meant that at the very least, they were psychologically prepared for the possibility of such an attack happening one day. So quite frankly, be ready to hurt such fools and make an example of them. These brothers went easy on this guy, but I'm happy that they did what they did. At least this guy...
Something I want to point out before we get to this part. The title of this chapter where he showed Abdullah Samir is Ex-Muslims as an Aggressive Group. ex-Muslims as an aggressive group. And he used, what are the examples that he used? One of the most peaceful ex-Muslims. He used the ex-Muslims of North America and hasn't pointed out to what is aggressive about them. And he used a guy who murdered his family. How many examples, counter examples, can I use of Muslims? Can I say Muslims as an aggressive group and cite 2 examples of nice preachers and 2 murders? Is that how that works?
Guy looks really shaken up, like his morning plans really got ruined. He's had better days. In fact, in that state, that's a face that only a mother can love. So may Allah bless these brave brothers who gave us this little gift that helped to cool our chests. I mean, no one wants to invite trouble. I don't want trouble. No one wants trouble. But these brothers set a good example here. If there's other would-be attackers out there planning their attack, sitting in their basements on their computers, planning their attack, planning their moment of fame, well, hey, this could be your photo next time. I would avoid this mosque if I were you, because it looks like the brothers here really don't want to play. Lastly, as Muslims, we want to do what our Prophet ﷺ would do, which is to try to turn a negative into a positive, to extract a positive lesson or positive action point from this incident. Let's take at least one good lesson from Mr. Handsome here. If he was willing to wake up and to make it on time for the 7 a.m. Fajr prayer, dawn prayer at the mosque, you know where this is going. You know where I'm taking this. What does that say about you and me? What does that say?
Okay, this is not really a main focus of this stream, but I just want to point out this kind of guilt tripping, right? Using this opportunity to make people pray more. If a murderer can wake up on time, a potential murderer or murder suspect or whatever, why can't you go and pray? It's kind of sleazy, but
that say about our dedication to our cause, our dedication to the cause of Islam? I mean, he could have attacked us at Dhuhr time. He could have attacked us at Asr time. Not many people come for the Asr prayer. Or he could have had his dinner and come for the Isha prayer. But no, he decides on Fajr prayer, 7 a.m. Fajr prayer. That means he probably set his alarm clock for 5:30 a.m., probably got up, had a shower, brushed his teeth, or scratch that, maybe he didn't brush his teeth, boiled a couple of eggs, and then he makes it here on time for the Fajr prayer. You have to at least admire that kind of discipline. Brothers, was this guy's hate for Islam greater than our love for Islam? Are we...
Okay, all right. I don't think there's anything else that's relevant here. So I want to talk about a couple of points before we move on to my video, where I talk about a similar incident, not an equivalent incident, but a similar one where someone was actually hurt by a Muslim. And then I'm going to talk about an example where I was threatened by a Muslim and how I handled that. So a few things I found ironic. While I was reading the article, which I'm going to have in the description of this video, part of the article said he was charged with mischief to religious property. And I went to look into that in the Criminal Code of Canada. Let me show you what that looks like. So it says here, everyone who commits mischief in relation to property that is a building, structure, or part thereof that is primarily used for religious worship, including a church, mosque, synagogue, or temple, or an object associated with religious worship, blah, 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 blah. The irony here is, so Muslims are afforded this right, to be able to charge someone with this kind of hate crime. And rightfully so. The irony is that Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Muhammad, but I think the Prophet Ibrahim example is more cut and dry. Prophet Ibrahim demolished the temples of the polytheists while they were out celebrating their Eid, their holy celebration or whatever. And that would have been a crime in Canada. So is that morally or ethically justifiable, objectively, according to the Islamic objective morality? If that's the case, then someone has the right to do the same to a mosque. But no, Canada would protect them. A secular country would protect them from that kind of thing. So thank you, secularism. What did Islam do for those polytheists? Nothing. And in fact, it painted it as a great thing. It painted Ibrahim the troll with his trollish actions of putting an axe around the neck of one of the idols and saying, why don't you ask him? Maybe he destroyed the other idols. This trollish behavior is rewarded in Islam. And if we see a Muslim emulating that, right, whether it applies to the law of the land or not, if we see a Muslim emulating that, and they do in a lot of Muslim countries, we somehow are still not pointing to the religion being the cause. Why is that? So I find it mighty ironic that Canada affords them more rights than they would afford non-Muslims in their lands. A lot more rights. Another thing that I want to comment on. So he said, what kind of Muslim would speak like that, right? When he was talking earlier about thank God that this person was executed or that person was executed. Did we forget that Farid Responds had or was responsible for a website that was anti-Shia? That Farid Responds, the guy who's very popular now, had a website that was anti-Shia. So that's against another sect in Islam. Do you forget how much hate there is between different factions of the religion, let alone towards outsiders? So to paint Muslims as this one big peaceful group who has nothing to do with anything is disingenuous. And where was he? Where was this guy to condemn Ali Dawah, for example, saying in a perfect Sharia law state, ex-Muslims would be executed, and we're proud of that. Can you imagine if ex-Muslim channels came out and said, in a perfect atheist state, Muslims would be so and so, and we're proud of that? Oh, they'd jump on it like vultures, like they already have because of this incident that thankfully didn't cause any casualties. Where was he? Well, he can't say anything because the moment that they even try to sugarcoat it, they're going to get a lot of hate from Muslims saying, are you going against Allah's religion? Stop trying to make bid'ah. Stop trying to innovate. This is what Allah said. You have to listen. Samana wa ata'na. And then what did he say about Muhammad Hijab, saying that's a softer version of this, which is, no, let's not execute them. What if we strategically relocate them to another place? Can you imagine if I today said, Muslims in Canada, let's strategically relocate them somewhere else? Isn't that hateful rhetoric? Where's the video condemning that? If an ex-Muslim came out and made a video like that, I would be out here telling them, no, that is wrong. And I'd be making it clear to my audience, I don't recommend that. I don't support that at all. That's not the rhetoric that I follow. Where is your video condemning any of that? It's non-existent because it's in your religion. Wrap that around your head. The problem here is your religion. And I keep repeating that Muslims are better than Islam. And you'll see that in the video that I'm just about to play now. So I really don't know what to say except it's hypocritical, it's spineless, and it's opportunistic that they're jumping on any incident to say, look at us, Muslims are so attacked, when you're following a hateful religion. And I concede that there are a lot of Muslims who are not hateful. Most Muslims are not hateful. However, when it comes to ex-Muslims, their view of ex-Muslims is way lower than non-Muslims, than any other group, pretty much, except maybe the homosexuals. So don't ignore that double standard of yours. Address it. Do something within your own community. And now I want to show you a hadith that shows you how Islam would endorse some kind of violence against potential ex-Muslims or actual ex-Muslims in a family, and how it escalates to bigger and bigger issues. Here's a hadith where it says, I said to Ibn Sirin, I don't know if I'm reading that correctly in English, I have an orphan in my care. He said, treat him as you would treat your own child. Beat him as you would beat your own child. So this is a Sahih hadith, right? And people might say, well, we're not sure that the Prophet said that or that this came from the Prophet at all, but it is in your books and it is being applied to many varying degrees within the family, within Islamic schools. It just keeps happening. Here is one from the Prophet of Allah. And it's Hasan Sahih, but it is applied and it is recurring in other places as well, I believe. Command your children to pray when they become 7 years old and beat them for it when they become 10 years old. And arrange their beds to sleep separately, which is a whole other topic. How come Aisha was married at 6 and then consummated at 9 when 10 is the age when they start to separate the males and females, the siblings? But there you go. At 10 years old, you can beat your child for not praying. And you have the audacity to ask why we're so-called obsessed with this religion? Do you know how many children, and not even children above 18, especially women, are being beaten in their homes every single day? We don't see politicians coming out to talk about these issues, be it in Muslim communities in the West or otherwise, because they're so afraid to further marginalize what they consider to be a marginalized group. So if you have a spine, if you have some sort of consistency, then please talk about these issues in your community so we don't have to. You think we want to be this person who is looked at as the villain, who is as you put it, the loud, whatever, belligerent or whatever, the loud minority of ex-Muslims? So I would like to see some condemnation about your text. So, but unless you do that, then I have every right to come out here and say, I don't like Islam, and this is one reason why I don't like it. And that's not a hateful position to take. I'm sorry, I don't like beating children or marrying them. Now, let me show you the the video, and I'll play just some of the relevant parts of this video of mine. Let me know if it is if the audio is good. Let me add it real quick to the stream. And to reiterate, once I show this video, to contrast how I talk about these issues, a confirmed Muslim actually stabbing someone, and how he talks about this, and then I'll tell you how I handled one of those threats. So here's the tab. So the title of my video is Islam Condones Harming Blasphemers, right? And I think that's a very factual title. Let's listen. Because it means defending the religion. So here's some of the justifications. She was warned multiple times. What this means is that if a Muslim warns you to stop talking about the Prophet and you still do, you should expect that they would stab you. In fact, I've been told so many times, why are you making the hornet's nest? You should expect this. What this is really saying is that you should expect this kind of behavior from Muslims. You're fueling hate against Muslims by justifying this, saying that, what do you expect if you disparage the Prophet? If you listen to my words carefully, I'm not saying you should be expecting this from Muslims. Wait, someone's saying increase the volume. Okay, let me do that. Sorry, give me a second. I may not be able to increase it more than this, so I'll just talk a little bit further away. So what I'm saying here is, when you claim that, what did you expect except for violence? When Muslims defend such attacks, on a blasphemer or whatever by saying, well, then you shouldn't have been blaspheming, you're painting Muslims as violent, and I don't like that. That's what I'm saying here. Muslims by justifying this, saying that, what do you expect if you disparage the Prophet? I don't stand for that. And I think Muslims are better than that. And they should strive to be better than that, rather than justifying this by saying she was warned. The same kind of justification carries over to what happened in Speaker's Corner. A lot of Muslims keep saying she was warned before. People have punched her before to warn her, so she kind of had it coming. Do I really need to say anything about that? I'll just let it sink in. The second justification I've heard from everyday people is she was hurting the Prophet. If your Prophet is all right, let's talk about, I'll show you another segment of that video. So here I am saying, don't say that you should expect violence from Muslims. That's, Muslims are defending the attacks by saying that you should expect this. This is what happens when you disparage your Prophet and so on. I am saying don't say that because it paints Muslims in a bad light, and I don't want that. That's how I talk about the issue. Now, here's another segment from the same video. Hadith existing in the first place. Now, why am I not talking about violence encouraged or inspired by other religions? It's simple. I don't have to talk about every single religion in the world to be able to talk about Islam. That is not a qualification for criticizing Islam. That is not a qualification for pointing out real life problems caused by religion, specifically Islam. And if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm an ex-Muslim. I am someone who has left Islam and wants to talk about the problems in Islam, such as this one, about problems that have to do with the core beliefs in Islam, not just, stabbing attacks. I am someone who would be affected by this kind of hate. I am someone who would be affected by this kind of ruling if I lived somewhere where Islam was the law of the land. I am someone who has family members and friends who are Muslim, who I hate to see throw away their morality to defend this. I think Muslims are better than Islam, and I think their morality is sullied by this kind of rhetoric. And I hope it's crystal clear now why so many critics of Islam, especially ex-Muslims, choose to hide our identities. We've spoken about this many, 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 many times, and they just choose not to listen. I've had to repeat these kind of answers so many times, and they don't perpetuate them to their followers. They don't host us on a platform where they ask us a question very clearly, why do you talk about Islam? And then I get to explain it. And when that happened, and that has happened, and you can see my discussions with Muslims where I try to explain that to them, the ones who have a platform, like the Dawah people, they just lose their minds. They cannot handle that kind of conversation, even when I'm being nice. And then you see them melt down. And that should show you that there's a disconnect here. This is why I wear a mask. I'm not sure if I would ever be recognized and stabbed for talking about Islam, but I'm certainly not taking the risk. I have seen what a lot of belligerent believers are capable of doing, regardless of whether the majority of Muslims support them or not. It is only prudent to be worried about being stabbed or hurt or doxxed by a belligerent believer. If you're a critic of Islam, you should absolutely be worried about that, and that's why I wear a mask. Now, I don't know what to tell you, dear Muslim, if you're still watching, to do with this hadith, as someone who has faith yourself. I don't know how you can reconcile this with the Prophet being the best man in existence and Allah having kind of condoned all of this going on. I really don't know what to tell you. You're going to have to face this and think for yourself for once. I watched a portion of my video and I thought I'd put some disclaimers at the end to make things absolutely clear. Do not use my videos to fuel. watch this, right? So I watched the video, I was done editing it, and then I realized, no, I still need to add more disclaimers just to be safe. Fuel hate against, and to make things absolutely clear. Do not use my videos to fuel hate against other people. Do not use my videos in your Christian apologetics or fight against Islam. What I'm highlighting is hateful sentiments that are directed towards critics of Islam and people who just left Islam, that everyone keeps ignoring like there's some kind of extreme case. When these extreme cases happen, they're justified by everyday Muslims, and then they carry those sentiments towards us and other disbelievers. Most Muslims are not intentionally lying about this not being in their scripture or not being aware of this. So, I'm not advocating for cornering every Muslim you meet about this kind of thing. What I am advocating for is asking the tough questions to the da'wah people, to the scholars, to those who preach Islam. And that's why I would like to have a conversation with Sadat, right? He is a preacher. He is more knowledgeable on Islam than I. So he should be able to explain it to me, a simple ex-Muslim, humble with, not having enough knowledge, and tell me what it is that I'm missing to see the big picture when it comes to these things that are hateful and harmful against us. Ask them to explain this stuff, to contextualize it, like they say, how one would not get the wrong conclusion knowing that the Prophet allowed someone or let someone get away with killing their slave because they insulted the Prophet. Because that implies that the Prophet would be A-okay with what happened at Speaker's Corner. And that implies that the Prophet is, I hate to say the word, but a terrorist sympathizer. So unless you dismiss this hadith entirely, unfortunately, there is a basis for this kind of action in Islam. And that is what we need to address. All sources are going to be in the description. So that's how I talk about this topic. So do you see the difference here? Do you see how I'm not saying Muslims, the violent, belligerent group? And further than that, so here's an example. There's a video that I'm about to release very soon about the debate between Daniel Haqiqatju, a fundamentalist Muslim with a huge following and a platform, a hateful platform, and a progressive Muslima, Safiya Sabrin. And Safiya Sabrin doesn't like to be called a feminist. She thinks feminism is evil, blah, 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 but he calls her a feminist anyway. At some point in that debate, and you will see that once I post it, hopefully in a day or so, she says something. It was about the rape statistics in the West, and she says something like, "Who cares about the kuffar? Of course they lie." What she meant to say is, "Who cares about these statistics? Let's focus on the statistics in the Muslim world." And it was a very dumb point to make in general. It was a very, very dumb debate to be had on both sides, to be honest. But what she said, that sentiment, "Who cares about the kuffar? Of course they lie." Where did that come from except from Islam? If that's a progressive Muslima who's all like Islam and science go together, saying kuffar lie, of course, because of the sentiment that, this believer is a dishonest person, then why are we surprised? I am actually surprised that Muslims are on average better than Islam. If they knew Islam, if they knew it intimately, there's going to be a lot more people who understand it that way, that more belligerent way, that more adversarial way. So what do we expect when the progressives talk like this? So now, yeah, and like I said, I've highlighted what Dawah people have said and how people like him seem to be just nowhere to be found. They never make a video to advocate for anyone who is harmed by Muslims or ex-Muslims. They don't talk about, I haven't seen this yet. I haven't seen videos about how to handle somebody in your family leaving Islam. And unless it's about how to bring them back and how to force them to come back or try to brainwash them back. No one talks about how to coexist with them. Nobody talks about that. And it shouldn't be on me to have that idea. Someone who's trying to find ideas for ex-Muslims to survive in this environment, it's not always on us to try to coexist and try to be the therapists in our relationships with Muslims. They're the majority, and they're the ones with platforms, and we don't see that from them. So I'm asking you, where's your contribution? It's weird to me that even though I make videos that are satirical and I make videos that make fun of characters in Islam, it's weird to me that still Muslims do like me. Like there are a lot of Muslims who have conversations with me. Some people are like almost friends of the channel because of how often I see them on the channel. They're not content creators. There haven't been a lot of content creators, Muslim content creators or Dawah people who are friendly with us. But a lot of Muslims, once they actually hear us speak, they realize they're not awful people. So I'm building more bridges than he is between the Muslim and ex-Muslim community, even though I am making my satirical content about Islam. So explain that to me, please. Lastly, there are a few super chats I will get to in a moment. I just don't want to interrupt my train of thought, but thank you for that. Yeah, they're just known for using the weirdest analogies, like your ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, silly analogies. Now I'm going to talk about that incident. So a month or so ago, I don't remember how long, this person, unnamed person from an Arab Muslim background who lives somewhere not in the Middle East. I've seen him around the channel before, like commenting, and one time I opened my DMs, which I avoid my DMs because there's a lot of weird stuff there. I opened my DMs on one of the platforms, and I see that he has sent me some voice notes, and they're threatening. And they were stuff about, I'm going to expose your identity, everyone's going to know your name, I'm going to post where you live, and then it involved my family as well. He didn't name anybody, so I don't know how much information he actually did or didn't have, but he said, I will name your family, everybody's going to know who you are, and things like that. And there were, he didn't say, I'm going to beat you up, but he said stuff about, you're going to end up in a hospital, things like that. Or I don't remember exactly what the exact wording of it was. And I took some evidence of that before I decided, do I want to talk to them or not? I was going to make a video saying, look at what we get all the time, and this is why I wear a mask. Imagine if I wasn't wearing a mask, he would have my information right away. And what ticked me off was that he had his full name and his image, and he didn't care. He said that he doesn't care because he works in his field of business. It doesn't really matter. And I don't know what he does for a living. I didn't try to find out that much information about him. But in my search, of his username, I came across his YouTube channel, and I saw some of the playlists that he had watched or liked or whatever. And it was just regular people stuff. Like some of it was some old nostalgic, like plays and some rock music and things like that. And even before that, I had this thought in my mind, like, why is he saying this? There must be a trigger behind this. And I understand that he wouldn't just flip suddenly. There must be a reason. And then I saw all this, and it was more of a reminder that this is a real whole person. This is just not some faceless troll who's, here to throw some words around. This is a real person. So against the advice of the friend or two that I mentioned this to, I actually answered his message, and I reached out, and I was trying to have a conversation with him, and I said, okay, tell me, like I said, I don't appreciate you making threats against my family especially, but tell me what is it that makes you so angry at me? Can you explain to me what is it that you think I am hateful for? Or what am I promoting? Hate, how am I doing that? If you watch my videos, can you just give me timestamps? Can you actually tell me what it is? Because like I said before, I'm open to feedback. If I'm saying something that is misconstrued or that could be misconstrued easily, I want to know so I could change that. So what he was trying to do, and I'm not going to get into all details, but it was a long back and forth for a few hours of me sending voice notes back because I felt like I could express myself a lot better that way than if I just wrote text back. And he wanted to get me on a call with his friends, and it was going to be messy. And I said, no, I'd rather just use the medium that I prefer. And the whole time he was provoking me and calling me names and calling me all sorts of horrible names of my family and so on. And I continued, and I wanted to hear him out. And turns out the trigger behind all of this was some kids in a school that I'll just be vague about how he knows them. They were bullied, and the Muslim kids were bullied, and the bullies said that they saw a video of mine. And that made me feel shocked for a moment. I asked him, well, what was the video? What is it that they were citing? And it turns out it was one of those live streams where I was dissecting the apologetic points, I think by Omar Suleiman, and who else? And Jonathan Brown, the favorite white convert of the Muslim world. They were giving excuses for why marrying Aisha at the age of 6 and consummating at the age of 9 was okay at the time, and so on. And in that video is literally a dissecting apologetics video where I literally played their videos and gave my thoughts on that and cited other scholarly opinions and so on to show either they're lying or they're misconstruing things and so on. I wasn't bringing up this information from thin air. I wasn't making up information. So I felt bad, and I told him to apologize to the kid's parents on my behalf, but I didn't cause this. And I made it very clear. I always make it clear in disclaimers. And I said, I promise I'm going to put even more disclaimers going forward and make sure that I clarify. I think Muslims are better than Islam. I think that these things Muslims are kind of forced to believe, because once you're already in the paradigm of Islam, what choice do you have but to accept this kind of apologetic point? You could dismiss it altogether and become a Quranist, or find a way, find some cognitive dissonance somewhere. But I know that this is not because Muslims are bad people, and I make that clear. So I was able to eventually extract that answer out of him, and he eventually said, okay, I take back the threats. And that was that. We haven't spoken much since, to be honest. I haven't really been in the mood to chat after that. But instead of making it a whole debacle, instead of putting his voice, face, name, any of that stuff on a video, I wanted to maybe in the future talk about that, but I guess here I am talking about it. And this is how I handled an interaction with someone who may or may not have had information on me and my family, but at least was making threats about that. And I forgot where I was going with this. So this is what I deal with all the time, and I'm a tiny channel. All the time I get threats. Not as violent as these. Usually it's just some light bullying, the usual Muslim stuff, like, you're going to go to hell. This is why you should be executed. If only we had our way, you'd be executed. And I've never seen a dawah person come out and talk about this, because they can't. What's the best that they can do? They say, actually, no, we only execute the traitors in our own countries, or it's a different context if it's in the context of war, but for now, don't execute them. Just say that they're the worst of people, or just don't say it to their face. All of this stuff is inspired by the religion itself. And it's very difficult for me, because I'm trying to, at the same time, keep this delicate balance of reminding people that those people who adopt bad beliefs, even the person, for example, who threatened me, I see why he did that, because he was concerned for the kids. Because in his mind, I was perpetuating hate that would cause kids like that to be bullied. But I wasn't. I was merely, if anything, bringing attention to these beliefs that not even the kids' parents may have known, that some kids' parents do know, and that they're going to instill in them later on in life, that some people don't know that is in the Muslim faith. All of this stuff, I have to keep that in mind all the time, while being bullied and berated all the time, while being painted as the villain by somebody like that with a platform. Every Muslim with a platform just makes it a point to mention ex-Muslims at some point and paint us in an unfavorable light. And my patience, my empathy is running low. And that's not to say that I'm going to change my tone, or I'm going to turn into a Muslim hater, but it's difficult. That's what I want to express. It's an uphill battle. We can't even find our own community. And the more this happens, the more it fuels me to keep going. And then the more obsessed they're going to say that I am. But if no one's doing this, if not enough of us are doing this, then of course the few of us who are talking are going to be talking more often. So that's what I had in mind to say. I saw a couple of comments here. I'm going to read some super chats, and apparently AP is here. See, people always refer to me as AP, so I'm like, is it actually? Oh, it is him. Ex-Muslimism is a religion of peace. Now someone's going to take that out of context and think he's being serious. Just admit that it's all your fault. I do admit when the Prophet is here, I have to concede. Oh, Prophet, you have said the truth. So, yeah, thank you for the super chats, Benjamin, by the way. I'm going to read some super chats, and then I'm going to say a couple of things to close. Should have turned the tables on him and asked him, is that what Islam taught him? I can't remember where the context of this one was, but there's a lot of tables that need to be turned. And I invite you, person who made this video, sorry, I have an awful memory, so I'm going to keep forgetting what his name is. This is embarrassing for me. I invite you to come here and have a conversation with me, or on your channel, or wherever it may be, and tell me what it is that Islam teaches about us ex-Muslims, what it is that you would do to help facilitate this transition for us and, reduce friction between Muslims and ex-Muslims. Yeah, so you're welcome to reach out to me. And let's see, Benjamin again. Why would they contribute to making videos about coexisting with ex-Muslim family members when you are supposed to be put to death for disbelief? So not all Muslims believe that you should be put to death for disbelief, but most of them, when they are faced with that, they say, well, just be quiet about it then. As if it's easy to just go about your everyday life like a hypocrite, like a munafiq, which they say you shouldn't be. As if it's easy to do all the rituals because you're pretending to be Muslim. You're basically Muslim without the belief, and you're living a whole lie just so that you don't get harmed, just so that people don't look at you differently and treat you awfully, or just so that you don't get executed in a place where, being public about your apostasy would get you executed. Or they say, then don't criticize the religion if you don't want to be executed. Well, that's, fascist terminology. Yeah. Frodo, thank you for the super chat. They say, research anti-Shia March Karachi 2020. It was enormous. Masses can't tolerate Sahaba being criticized. Then they wonder why bombings keep happening. Yeah, I know that in Pakistan, it just happened in February as well. Like somebody was lynched for a reason or another. I don't hear any condemnation from them about these things. If anything, they would just say, no, the Prophet didn't say that, but they never address the source material. Like in that video where I showed the Prophet let it slide when somebody killed his slave because she was talking crap about the Prophet behind his back. Thank you, Zachros, for the super chat. Nothing to say, I suppose, but thank you. And Benjamin again, have to view apostates as less than non-Muslims. We must humiliate and dehumanize ex-Muslims to protect Islam and deter more apostates from sprouting. Here's the thing, yeah. So, Apostate Prophet says, I think his name is Guy. So here's why it seems like almost a default to look down on and berate ex-Muslims. If you're a Muslim who accepts that belief is not a choice, then you've just kind of neutered Islam. Because Islam is built around this idea that a kafir is a believing disbeliever. They know that Islam is the truth, but they deny it because they're evil, they're liars, they're this and that. So it's either one or the other. So if disbelievers are misled or whatever, you may have this like gray area where you think all disbelievers are misled and only Allah knows what happens. But let's face it, the truth is in Islam, a disbeliever is going to hell and they have no chance at redemption unless they somehow repent before they die. But they can't wrap their head around the concept of disbelief, it seems. If you're an empathetic Muslim, you're either going to have this kind of in-betweener view, or you're going to realize this whole test of life doesn't make sense, it doesn't add up, and you're going to end up becoming an ex-Muslim. Welcome to the club. But to make sense of Islam, you have to believe as a Muslim, especially one who hasn't dug that deep into it, that there is truth to this, right? Like Allah says that they're deniers. So who knows what other qualities they may have? As Sophia Sabrin said, they're kuffar, of course they lie. So it seems like a conclusion that is inevitable. And it is fortunate for the world that most Muslims aren't as reaching the inevitable conclusions in Islam, but they are inevitable and they will keep happening on and on again unless we address the source material. And every time I talk about such a thing, I make it clear that thankfully most Muslims are better than Islam, but it is still hindering them, and it is still getting in the way of us coexisting with them. And it is not on us to shield them from people's reactions when they realize the truth about Islam, or when Muslims themselves realize the truth about Islam. That's not on us. So please go through your own religion, sift through it, see what needs to be improved. If you are allowed to do that without it being called blasphemy, try to build bridges in one way or another. Don't pick on the worst examples, Abdullah Samir, and you say those are the violent ex-Muslims or encouraging violence. Come on, like that was, you could have done, easier. You could have used an easier example, but the truth is most ex-Muslims, if not all prominent ex-Muslims, don't call for this kind of violence. Even Apostate Prophet, the star that everybody loves to hate, he doesn't call for this hate against ex-Muslims, against Muslims. But most of the time, this is just a reputation that we have earned, rightfully so, or not, usually not rightfully so. And people don't even watch the videos. Like a lot of those people haven't seen my videos, but they tell me all of these things, like you're hateful and so on. Yeah, Abdullah Samir is a very violent guy. You have no idea what he sends us in the DMs. Nothing really problematic. Happy Camper, thanks for the super chat. Off topic, but do you plan to host a women's ex-Muslim call-in soon? The last one is amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, so definitely will. I've already had one. If you haven't watched it, please go watch it. I've also, interestingly enough, since I mentioned that a lot of Muslim or ex-Muslim women are not interacting with my content, there's been an uptick. So thank you for that. Even in a lot of call-in streams where I didn't explicitly ask for female callers, there would be a female Muslim or ex-Muslim calling in. So I really appreciate that because they seem to be also happy about, having a space to do that. So definitely going to have another one of those at some point soon. And as much as I don't need to prepare for those, so they only take as much time as it takes to host them, they can also be they do take a little bit of energy out of me because at the end of it, a long day, I still have to focus on what the people are saying. I still have to be engaged. So I take a few breaks every now and then from these streams, but there will be one soon. And thanks, Benjamin. Your Dissecting Apologetics is a great series. I appreciate that. I like that series because all it takes is just thinking and asking questions and pointing out when they're lying. So I will keep doing those as well. Abdullah Samir is a freaking goat, no cap. I miss Abdullah Samir. Yeah, we all miss him, and I hope he has time to make videos at some point soon. What do you think about the response to Iyad al-Qunaybi's video, since he is the largest Salafi sheikh in the Arab world? To be honest, I haven't really given them that much thought, so yeah, no comment at the moment. Yeah, so I'm going to take a few more comments and then call it a day. But to reiterate, let me not reiterate till I remember his name. I swear this is not a diss. I just have a very bad memory. What is that guy's name? Yes, Sadat. Sadat, yes. Please, Sadat, if you would like to have a conversation, if you would like to clarify what you think is obsessive and hateful about what my rhetoric or anybody else like me or Abdullah Samir, if you want to use that example, and I will hold you to that example, or ex-Muslims of North America. If you can just prepare a few slides, show us exactly what it is that you find hateful, that would be very productive. I can give you my thoughts on that. You can express your views to the so-called hateful or obsessive ex-Muslims. Maybe you'll get to their mind. Maybe you'll convert a few of them. Maybe you'll get some of them to realize they're overdoing it. Here's your chance. So yeah, if you know how to reach that guy, let him know. I'll probably tag him somewhere in the video. Okay, a couple of comments before we wrap up. Let's see. Sorry I couldn't focus on the comments today. I was busy, talking. Can you check Ramdi version of Islam? To be honest, it's low on my priority list. Not something that seems relevant to me or to, a large number of people, so I cannot prioritize it at the moment. How come they don't talk about all the violence going on in Pakistan? I think bringing attention to the violence between Muslims or Muslims and other groups in other parts of the world is counterproductive for them as Muslims in Canada. So they're not going to touch that topic at all. But it's unfair because, where is this all coming from, if not the same religion? Benjamin, thanks again for the super chat. He says, I thought it's a good thing to be obsessed with Islam. Now when people are ex-Muslim, they don't like it. Let's address that for a moment. So say you are someone who wakes up every day for a Fajr, the example of that Sadat gave, wakes up every day for Fajr, prays their 5 prayers at the mosque or otherwise. They memorize Quran. They do the things that make you a good Muslim, or they try at least. Whether they actually understand the contents or not, they're doing their best, or they're forced to do it. Whatever the case may be, it takes up a huge chunk of their life. And then one day they realize it's not true. Not only that, they realize that the people that they used to vilify or that their religion vilifies is now them. And they see how that doesn't fit. Like, I'm not a villain. None of this is because I am worshiping my desires because I don't want to worship Allah or something like that. And that's a shock. And some people transition through it easily, some don't. And after all of that, they expect you to drop all of this like a hot potato in whatever environment you're in that is full of Muslims and Islam. And just like that, no more Islam in my life, no more Islam in my mind. So that's not how it happened to me. I am able to step away from this stuff, but in my case, I feel an urge to talk about it because, like I said, there's not enough people talking about this topic. There's not enough representation, and these systemic issues endorsed by Islam, empowered by Islam, violence against ex-Muslims, violence against the family members who are even straying away from the religion, against the women, against the girls in the family. All of this stuff is not being addressed by Muslims or their governments or anybody. So somebody has to talk about it. And all that aside, it is um, Islam has not been subjected to the scrutiny that other religions have to the same extent. It's only recently that you see these mainstream jokes about Islam, these mainstream conversations about this verse or another verse. And I don't think that belief is inconsequential. This whole idea that why don't you just let people believe what they want to believe? And at the end of the day, they're free to believe whatever they want. But I'm free to tell them, hey, you saying that disbelievers are the worst of people is not a nice sentiment to have, and it makes people suspicious of you. And is that really a difficult thing to digest? If you repeat your verses every day saying disbelievers are the worst of people, in context or not, polytheists are so and so, some Muslims are gonna take it to mean polytheists today, rather disbelievers today. Like again, Sophia Sabrin was saying, this is some pagan, filthy Hindu polytheistic patriarchy is pagan and Hindu and stuff like that. Inflammatory, saying that Christians and Jews, they burn their widows or something like that. Where is that coming from if not from Islam? So yeah, we will examine these beliefs. So why do you think that Islam disappears the moment that someone stops believing in it? Unfortunately, that's not how it happens. And someday, hopefully, religion will just be a personal thing. You want to believe in religion, that's fine. Don't teach your kids that God is watching them and God gets really pissed and angry and jealous if they don't pray, and if they pray to another entity, or all this bizarre stuff. At some point, hopefully, we recognize that this is harmful for the children as well. But I guess a good starting point would be keep it in your family. Don't ask for laws that would empower your religion over others. Secularism seems to be a good balance. Even Muslims are afforded better protection under secularism than they afford other religions. Like I gave the example of Prophet Ibrahim. He broke one of Canada's laws if the tables were turned. So yeah, please recognize that. Thank you, Apostle Prophet, for the super chat. Nobody owns Islam. It's up to the individual, and everyone can say and think whatever they want about it. Absolutely agree. Keep it in your pants, in your family pants. Yeah, absolutely agree with that. It's just like any other religions, just like Muslims criticize or mock Christianity, just like atheists do any religion. We're allowed to do that. And I think it's beneficial to make people laugh about their own beliefs or other beliefs that they used to be scared of. So often do I get messages from people saying, I used to be terrified of this idea of hell, even though I wasn't doing anything wrong. It's just this indoctrination. Since I was a child, I keep being reminded of hell and how I'm going to be dragged there by my hairs if I don't wear the hijab and this and that. Hijab is a choice, they say. And they say it's helped me to realize that people laugh about this. People are so past the point of indoctrination that it's funny. And that part of me that finds it funny is able to accept that now. So you don't see the value of humor, but it is there. Or another way to think about it is, once you laugh at something, even if you are a believer, you laugh at a story in Islam, then you realize it is funny. Why is it funny? And that's a good gateway to thinking about it. All right, I'll read a couple more comments and then I'll wrap up. It's important for ex-Muslims to live their lives too, have fun. Congrats, you're out of the cult. Your ancestors are proud. Yeah, and that's why not everybody is out here talking about leaving Islam. And in my personal life, believe it or not, I've mentioned this before, I don't bring it up, especially like if I'm around Muslims. Most of the Muslims in my life who I chose to keep around, they know that I don't practice anymore. Most of them don't know about my channel. One or two do, but they know that I don't practice anymore, that I don't believe. We may even have interesting philosophical discussions, but I don't just bring up, so about Islam. That's not how it happens. If anything, sometimes they ask me. There's a funny situation where this is not to disparage my Muslim friend, but me and a Muslim friend and a Hindu friend were sitting having a shisha, and she had some questions about Islam, and I had some questions about Hinduism. I was just curious. She's not really practicing, but she had some questions about Islam, and my Muslim friend would look at me and be like, "I know that you know this. I'm not sure," and he knows that I'm not a believer anymore. So it's funny because he would never doubt that an ex-Muslim like me doesn't know Islam or anything like that, and he doesn't mind that I know more in these specific areas. He knows that I was searching for the truth, and that's why I know a lot. Not that I'm a scholar or anything, but yeah, just a funny anecdote. Um, So, yeah, there's some commentary about people like this Dawah person, so that I really approve of your selection of targets for criticism, like Yasir Qadi, Omar Suleiman, Jonathan Brown, and Sadat. Those guys are playing the optics game well and need to be pinned down and exposed. Omar Suleiman, Yasir Qadi, and so on. Absolutely. And I highlighted how creepy it is that Omar Suleiman smiles as he talks about child marriage, his creepy, bone-chilling smile. How Yasir Qadi says things that are wrapped in pseudo-intellectualism but actually mean nothing. How he says things that are horrifying, but just under the cloak of this moderate Islam that isn't actually all that moderate when you think about it. They're able to occupy the gray zone without being explicit and thus fly under the radar compared with Haqiqat Shu or Muhammad Hijab, and still remain palatable to moderate people. Even Muhammad Hijab is not an extremist to Muslims. Like, he has conversations with non-Muslims now, like Jordan Peterson, and they seem to platform people like him. They don't see that it's harming us. So who's our ally? Seems like not a lot of people are, except other ex-Muslims. Yeah, they need to have their cover stripped. For some reason, Bilal says, I never thought I was going to hell because I always thought it was the, I don't know what that word is, but somebody else? I don't know. I know my ancestor, Robert says, my ancestors for the past 12 generations, and I know all of them hate me. Hey, live your best life. Don't worry about that. Jackknife, oh, thank you. I love the way you think. Pasa Prophet says, yeah, I think you should talk more about serious and intelligent academics like Ali Dawah. It just escapes my mind because, I'm terrified to say his name. He who shall not be named, or else grapes will follow me from the heavens. Targeting Ali Dawah would be a very easy subscriber grab. If I were just to be like, hey, let's start some beef, you blah, 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 and call him names. And I know I'm like flying under his radar right now. There's this comment on the video that we were just watching. He said something like eloquently put or something like that. It wasn't even as eloquently put as eloquently put. And I said, of course, by your standards it is, because he went 17 minutes without saying pusillanimous. So, and he said something to the effect of, no, you're pusillanimous. Wow. Like, did he arrive there himself? Like, he had time to think of a comment for maybe a few hours, and all he could come up with, it was, you're pusillanimous. It's, yeah. Secular Rarity, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate your content. Thank you. You have a lot of knowledge and empathy. That is exactly what these conversations need. Thank you so much. And I want to share something, not really an announcement or anything, but I want to keep learning more. So my knowledge about Islam is based on what I learned growing up, based on my efforts to find the truth about whether Islam is the truth. So they're focused on certain areas and not others, or to look into something that I would have considered to be a shubha at the time, which is something, I suppose, suspicious or not clear that Islamophobes use against Islam and so on. So I've researched into those. And some of them are debunkable, I suppose, and a lot of them are not. So my knowledge is focused in certain areas. So I don't want to portray myself as some like super knowledgeable person, but I certainly know more than the average Muslim. However, I do want to educate myself even more so that I can elevate the conversations beyond just the personal level of talking to everyday Muslims. But I want to participate in more conversations like I've seen AP recently has been talking to more and more qualified people who study the Quran, who study the preservation of the Quran. These are very interesting topics. but I want to dive a little bit deeper, and I need time to do that. And I know that I barely began this channel. Like I haven't. It's only been a year possibly, and I haven't been posting for the whole year even. So looking forward to the future, and hopefully, a few more years of learning and furthering my work here. And thank you everybody for joining today. And I hope you got something from this commentary on this accusation that we are perpetuating such psychotic attacks on mosques. It irks me that he even can get away with it. It irks me that all the comments are already, clapping for him. But it is what it is, and all I can do is just talk about it and hope that people listen. So thank you all who are here for listening. Thank you for those who have given super chats as well. I appreciate that. And yeah, as always, everybody, think critically and think for yourself.